I want to shift gears just to Ohtani last night. I liked that he made a choice and said, I'm not going to hit. I'm a little banged up. I'm going to focus on this. He's an all-time great with what he does, but he looks like he is a pitcher first this year.
Honestly, BK, what I saw last night, I would encourage him to not hit at all when he starts the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, the one thing you want to do with Ohtani more than anything else, you want to keep him healthy. Between now and the end of October, you want him healthy in whatever capacity you possibly can.
Right.
He just looked, not that he hasn't been dominant in other starts, he looked different to me last night. You know, maybe it was not factual based, that's an opinion based, but he looked fresher. I thought his delivery was cleaner. I thought the effort his delivery was cleaner. Thought his late action on his pitches was better. Everything about his craft last night, I thought, took another step. And if that's the step and you can hit Dalton rushing and get him some at-bats in the DH role, because the guy is raking, I think it keeps your roster more in check and it keeps him more healthy through the course of a long season.
Right. He pulled the string. I saw on one pitch, was it 72? You go from high 90s to like 72, and he was hitting gears in between, too.
Seeing him pull 7 pitches out the arsenal, you're talking about a 72-mile-an-hour curveball, an 80-mile-an-hour curveball, an elevated heater at 100 miles an hour.
Split
finger to Bichette was one of the nastiest pitches that I've seen all season. I would love to see him continue to do both. I think all of this is going to always come down to Ohtani. He's the one who has to make the decision. I don't know how much the hit by pitch.
I'm just saying, only on the day he pitches, Chris.
No. I completely understand what you're saying, Dan. And I don't know how much the hit by pitch was the determining factor of him going out there and not hitting there. If that was the case, he's going to make the decision. Granted, he didn't give up a run even when he was hitting the first couple starts that he had this season. I will completely agree. The stuff did look different. And I recognize the stuff looked different. And if Dalton Rushing is going to do that while he's on the bench, then that plays. If Dalton Rushing went out and go 0 for 4, then is this conversation the same? It's the fact that the Dodgers have so much depth and so many guys that they can use in big spots. It seems like, I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches at this point. But if you have guys on the bench who can do what Rushing did yesterday, then it's an easy
decision. And it's the only team in the game that can't use their DH as a rest spot for everyday players that may need to get off their feet and hit but not play a position.
Well, Freddie Freeman could use that. Mookie Betts could use that when he comes back. Teoscar Hernandez, you have a lot of guys who can use that.
Impressive. And, again, if you follow the Mets, like, that's the club that you aspire to be. And it's been a few years.
That's a big gap.
And you're not them. You're not that. You thought you'd be them. You're not them. We'll take a short break. When we come back, the defending American League champs are under 500. We'll get to that. Oh, I want to ask you first, what is the biggest issue going on with the Mets? Identity. If you want to say, look, it's pitching, it's injuries, it's Soto being out. There's a lot of things. Let us know what you think. We'll have your reflections a little later on. This is MLB Now, presented by Olive Garden. We are the show for the thinking fan. Hi again, everybody. I'm Brian Kenny. 90 minutes today, taking you up to the Blue Jays and the Brewers at 1:40 Eastern. Big day. We dig deep into Kevin McGonigal's game. Super rookie, big contract extension. We love it. A lot of weird baseball-y plays last night. Yankees and Padres with crazy comebacks. And we'll play America's favorite game show, Hit or Error. Chris Young, Dan O'Dowd on the panel, sports writer Keegan Matheson on the state of the Blue Jays after a trip to the World Series, Bill Madden, sports writer on the great old days of the Bronx Zoo. Bill, at Hall of Fame honoree, has a new book out on his career as a baseball writer. But first, Shohei Ohtani versus the Mets late last night. A lot going on. First, you have to like the choice by Ohtani. Feeling a little banged up. He was a pitcher only, as they say in youth baseball. Didn't DH, didn't hit, concentrated on his pitching. He goes 6, gives up 1 run, strikes out 10 Mets. Seems like he is going for the Cy Young this year. 3 starts into the season, Ohtani has allowed just that 1 run, a 0.50 ERA. On the other side of things, it's now an 8-game losing streak for the Mets. Hedge fund baseball ain't what it used to be. Let's do a little digging in. And I want to take you back to just last July 27th to be exact. The Mets are 62-44. That's not just a good start. That's 106 games into the season. You're 18 games over 500. You have a game and a half lead on the Phillies. This is a team that came off a run to the NLCS and then signed Juan Soto to the richest deal in the history of baseball. As of July 27th, well beyond the halfway point last season, the Mets stock was rising. The Mets waited a full year to get David Stearns, who had to finish out his contract with the Milwaukee Brewers. They then made him the highest paid executive in baseball. And David Stearns, year 1, was gold. 2024, just pasting together a roster. He signs 3 mostly middle-class pitchers, and they all deliver. Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Jose Quintana. All 3 do at least 170 quality innings. He also signs Jose Iglesias for very little money, who has a great season. All that on top of a pretty good Mets core. Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo. And again, after a trip to the NLCS, losing in 6 to the Dodgers, no shame in that. They then sign Juan Soto. So fast forward again. Get your mind here. July 27th last year. They're 62-44. The Mets. Really. From that date up until last night, only the Rockies have a worse record than the Mets. I'm going to say that again. Since July 28th of last year, the Mets, 2nd worst record in baseball. That doesn't make sense. Now, they had pitching injuries last year that helped sink them, but there was more to it. They didn't come from behind to win games. They underperformed. There was a lot of talk about superstars not getting along. Spare me. They finished the season 21-35, losing a spot in the playoffs on the last day of the season, where a win would have gotten them a wild card spot. That's bad. So, here comes the offseason. In David Stern's defense, he essentially says, hey, look, that wasn't working. Why run it back? Pete Alonso, well, there we go. Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, and Edwin Diaz, all gone. Replaced by, give them credit, they spent money. Bo Bichette, Freddie Peralta, Jorge Polanco, Luis Robert Jr., Marcus Semien came over in the Nimmo deal. Luke Weaver, Devin Williams. They pivoted to Bichette after losing out on Kyle Tucker. But look, those are 3 homegrown New York Mets, fan favorites. Does that matter a little bit? All gone. They got Semien for Nimmo. But all it took to keep Alonso, Diaz, and McNeil was money. And money is not supposed to be an issue. You're the Mets, number 1 or number 2 payroll in the game. Dan O'Dowd, who is with us again today, had a summary when we talked Mets yesterday. And he said essentially, maybe they went to fix a problem. That wasn't actually the problem. It certainly seems like it, because this was a house cleaning. They cleaned house, and what's left is messier. This is part of it too. It's less public, right? But the pitching coach, 2 hitting coaches, bench coach, first base coach, third base coach, all let go. Everything must go. Fan favorite players, the coaching staff, and if it works, well, they kept the manager, most of the coaching staff. If it works, it looks great. It doesn't look great right now. Let's bring in Chris Young, and I happen to have Dan O'Dowd with me again. See how I can quote Dan O'Dowd? He's sitting right here. How are you, Dan?
Good to see you. Heard my name.
I said I name dropped you in my rap. Come on now. Give me what you think there. I had to find the high water mark. The Mets last year, Dan, they started 21-9. They're 62-44. Like everything looks great, and it looks like, hey, they got everything going. What has happened?
Well, again, you're never as bad as the way you're playing right now. Keep in mind, in 2024, they were 10 games under 500 in May, came back and win the division. Lindor's always historically been a slow starter. He's coming off a hamate injury, and they don't have Soto right now. So I expect the Met team to play better. What I don't understand, BK and Chris, is that they took away the one thing in our game that you can't replace during the season, which is power. So by eliminating Alonso and eliminating Nimmo, they took away 2 significant run producers. So they structurally designed their club to have less power than they did a year ago. And that's a hard thing to fix as you get into the course of a season.
Alonso and Nimmo last year played 162 and 155. It's a lot to replace. And again, Chris, my thought is like, all it takes is money. The money is like you got. Right? They're supposed to be their competitive advantage. That's what confused me. I didn't expect this start, though. I didn't expect an 8-game losing streak this early.
No, I'm with you. And the reason that you see the changes, you alluded to it in your essay, is that they struggled over the second half of the season with those guys. So you're assuming we got to get rid of these guys. But those guys, I don't think, were the problem. When you're talking about, they were part of the core of this team. And yes, maybe you need to add some pieces. But even Jeff McNeil, the fact that he goes up there and then puts together consistent at-bats, only struck out 55 times, walking 49 times. Like, those are still pieces that you need in your lineup to keep consistent at-bats moving through the lineup. And then Pete Alonso has proven that he can play in this market. I know he hasn't been appreciated from the front office, but you're talking about a fan favorite over there in New York and part of the actual core of the team. So what ends up happening, you bring in Simeon, you bring in Luis Robert, you bring in Bo Bichette. Yes, these are all good players and can be great additions to the team, but now you actually lose the identity of your team, and the only person that you have left is Francisco Lindor, and the pressure falls on Francisco Lindor to be the only leader. When in years past, even if he was the leader, you had these other pieces around him that understood what it took to play in this market and play in New York. Can they turn it around? Absolutely. Absolutely, they're going to turn it around, but they're not going to turn it around playing this brand of baseball. It's more than just the strikeouts and the weak at-bats and the fact that they only scored 3 runs against the Dodgers. It's the miscues, the mental miscues that you're seeing from Francisco Lindor is something that I've never seen before. Even if you're talking about a slow start with the bat, I completely respect that. But if you're the one leader on the team, if this was Derek Jeter and we're talking about the New York Yankees, I can't have 5 mental mistakes out there in addition to the slow start with the bat because that carries over to the rest of the team, and you already understand how the fan base plays in New York. It wears on you, and it seems like it's a dark cloud above them right now, and you have to fight your way out of it. But the only way to fight your way out of it is to make sure not to make any of the mental miscues and understand that at-bats are going to ebb and flow all season long.
Hey, BK, do you feel like the hardest part for David, so if you look historically at his career up to the job with the Mets, he was in small market situations where ROIs are like really important. Every investment you make in a player, you have to get a positive return on the back end.
Right.
And so his view of the game is through that lens. And how could it not be? I mean, that's been his upbringing and training. But now all of a sudden you go to a place that really it's not so much about that as producing in the moment, not worrying about what may happen down the road. I would think that's been a real challenge for anybody in his position to be able to do that.
No question. Look, Andrew Friedman went from the Rays to the Dodgers, and he went seemingly a little slower. Now, he kind of cleaned house, but he wasn't successful before that, and it took a few years to get everything going.
Absolutely.
This is taking a longer period, and there's a general impatience as well, right? It's still with this club. Remember, they were built up 2-3 years ago, #1 payroll in the history of the sport. By the All-Star break and trade deadline, they're trading it away. And then they go back and like Juan Soto, and everybody's celebrating the Soto deal. And there's a danger to devoting $50 million to one guy, even when you have that payroll. I want to follow up on something, though. Here's a Lindor play. Not the worst thing you've ever seen, Chris, but you weigh in on this. Teoscar Hernandez beats this out, a ground ball. Tell me about this play.
Yeah, and I'm kind of going to battle back with you, BK. I think this is the worst. I think this is the worst that you're going to see. Teoscar Hernandez is not a flyer down the line. If I'm playing on this team and I'm sitting there in center field watching this play develop in front of me, yes, Teoscar Hernandez, you have to give him credit for hustling down the line, but you're not talking about an elite runner. You're talking about a Gold Glove winning shortstop right here who understands the speed of the game more than anybody who's on the field.
You know what it is? I'm glad you're a little hard on it because very few people are. Desire. Like, where's your desire? That's a marquee game, and you're letting that guy beat you to first. I'm just saying, like, normally, is that a terrible play? But it's telling.
Especially having that happen a few times before this season. Like, it's not like it's the first time. So if you understand the scrutiny that you're under as a player and you're understanding that people are questioning how much you're locked in and the fact that you're not going as hard as you normally do, when you know that's going on, when you're in the moment, if you have to turn that around, you have to go extreme the other way.
Right.
So I would expect him to see him charge that ball right out the gate, make sure there's never a question as opposed to making the choice in the moment.
Back,
You're talking about one of the best shortstops in the game. So I'm not talking about a rookie right here who doesn't understand the speed of the game. We're talking about Francisco Lindor. And it's bigger than that. And it stands out to me. This is the first time with Juan Soto that I've realized the level of superstar that he is to a lineup. Seeing him with the Yankees, he was the Robin to Aaron Judge. And he was like, okay, well, can he be the man? Is he the #1 guy? When you see him missing out of the lineup and you see how much their bats have changed, it starts to sell me on the fact that Juan Soto is the A1 guy.
Still, and to be fair, just to back up, if you just watch it today, look, Lindor has not known how many outs there were out on the field this year. Didn't cover second on what was a double play ball the other day. Got picked off first, just flat-footed, got thrown out at third. There's a lot of weird, smaller things happening. I just want to follow up one thing. You said something that I don't dismiss, even though I look at the game through an analytical lens, identity. I always remember Teddy Atlas, famous boxing trainer. I worked with Teddy for many years, used to say, as a fighter, you should know your identity.
Absolutely.
And it gets your energy in the right direction. When you know this is what we do, this is what we don't do, this is what we do, and it feels like just like last year, everything's there. What happened? Their energy wasn't going in the right direction.
I completely agree. If they're in the clubhouse, and I'm assuming the energy in the clubhouse was somber yesterday, who is the one who's going to step up? Who's the guy in there? Every now and then, yes, we don't all need a rah-rah guy in the clubhouse, and that's not what changes clubhouses. But every now and then you have those moments. And I don't know if it's the manager or a player who steps up, but it shouldn't be. At some point, we have to start feeling sorry for ourselves. We're way too early in the season to be in this mode. This is how you get when you're knocked out of the playoffs. And it's like you're trying to reflect, like, man, that didn't go well. We're in the first couple weeks of the season. The energy should not be that, even if you're starting off the season 0-14. You have to find a way to pick it up. It's a long